Well, I consider myself a pretty skeptical person. In other words, I will never throw all my eggs into one basket. So I have sort of been paying attention to this whole new media venture, uh, which has come out via Glenn Greenwald. And I have quite a few things to say about Glenn Greenwald, but this is not going to be about Glenn Greenwald bashing or anything. It takes on possibly a bigger dimension here. So I need to say right off that many of the articles that Glenn Greenwald has published over the years they've been great. I've been following him for a number of years. Not as some sort of a guru or anything, but the stories that he has gotten out there needed to be paid attention to, and that's precisely what I did. Now, before he ended up in this new media venture, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, he wrote for Salon and then eventually The Guardian. Now, what everybody has to understand about Glenn Greenwald's background is that he essentially got his career going as a corporate lawyer. He defended essentially corporate clients for a big New York law firm. And then he changed his mind about all that. He said he was disgusted with it and so on, and moved on to other ventures and into journalism, from law into journalism. Now, there's lots of stuff about Glenn Greenwald, but I don't necessarily want to focus on Glenn Greenwald as a person. I want to address a larger issue here, perhaps, and that is the infusion on. And I might be overstating this, but perhaps not. The infusion of this entire idea, this ideology of neoliberalism, neoliberal economic policy into virtually every media outlet. So, to that end, and in order to sort of disseminate this whole thing, there is no way of getting around reading very extensive articles. And this is not something that you can just glean up in 5 minutes or so. You have to do considerable research. And if you have time on your hands, like I do, after hours, because I don't have a family, I don't have any children to take care of, so I have, considerable leeway in order to look up all the stuff. I thought I would share it with you. So, as probably most of you know, or maybe not, but I'm assuming you know that Glenn Greenwald has started a new what he calls investigative journalism site, and this is financed by Pierre Omidyar. Now, Pierre Omidyar is, I should say this right from the start, one of the richest persons on the globe. Over at Forbes, he ranks as the 123rd most richest billionaires in the world. Okay, so that is just for starters. Now, Glenn Greenwald, and there's been much criticism regarding that whole connection all over the internet. And Glenn Greenwald defended this connection by saying that it basically, this new venture would provide him and other journalists with complete editorial freedom. They could say whatever they wanted to, and that Pierre Omidyar himself would not interfere in any of that. He also curiously said that whatever people say about Pierre Omidyar's political motivations, he hasn't really looked into it. It doesn't concern him. Basically, all he wants to do is investigative journalism. Now, right off for me, this raises some red flags, because obviously you're not going to try to offend the person who is essentially funding your whole venture too much. You It may be restricted to not offending him personally, but since Pierre Omidyar is one of the biggest corporatists out there, and Glenn Greenwald himself has essentially focused his ire merely on the government, it sort of makes sense that he would team up with somebody who is rich enough to actually influence government, and in fact acts as a sort of privatizer, as you will soon see in this expose, which I'm going to read in full. This is going to be a long video, I'm afraid, and people who don't have the patience for it, you may as well tune out now, because this is going to be a long video, or a series of videos, which I believe people should pay attention to. But if your attention span is too short for that, I understand. We all have lives to live, and we don't um, we don't all have the kind of time available to look into all of this stuff. And this may just be another what you would call down the rabbit hole kind of thing, because the financial connections between various publications, not just in the mainstream, but also on the internet, become so intertwined that it's very difficult to say who's funding whom and who's actually independent at all anymore. So certainly the vision of First Look / Intercept, this new venture by Pierre Omidyar, what it was, in his own words, was to set up a media organization which would reach a wide audience. In other words, what he's trying to do is to build an organization which appeals to a mass audience, in his own words. Now, ostensibly, that might mean that he wants to influence this mass audience in a positive way, in order to build a better society for everyone. Now, this could very well be his own belief. I'm not doubting that. I have no no evidence to the contrary, except what has been revealed through one of Mark Ames's articles in various publications, actually, before Panda took it over, Pando, whatever it's called, Pando, that he works for now. There are things I think people should pay attention to where all these neoliberal economic and globalization initiatives are actually leading towards, in terms of a world view which is out there, or being being pushed onto people. Okay, I think this essay, which is 27 pages long, will go a long way to explain that. And this is not the kind of view you're going to hear on most internet sites. So what I want to focus on is whether this billionaire-funded new media venture should be or shouldn't be above criticism. And so what I'm going to focus on is not Glenn Greenwald, Because for all I know, Glenn Greenwald may be naive enough to think that money doesn't influence things, and that he can still somehow get around the ultimate goals of huge corporate funders in order to tell the truth. I happen not to believe that, but maybe he'll find out otherwise some years down the line. But what I want to focus on is the activities of Pierre Omidyar. Now, as I said, Pierre Omidyar is a person who can fund many, many projects. He's a very, very rich person. And it cannot be denied that he essentially belongs to the 1%. He may not be, some unscrupulous oligarch, but he certainly counts amongst the very, very rich on the entire globe. So I'm going to take a little break here and then launch into reading this essay. See you in a minute.